Of Mesa Planning and Zoning Board public hearing today, April 28th, 2021. We would do a first roll call just to see what board members are present. We'll move forward. Chair Astle here, Vice Chair Sarkisian.
Here.
Board Member Boyle.
Here.
Board Member Allen.
Here.
Board Member Crockett.
Here.
Board Member Villanueva Saucedo.
Here.
Board Member Ayers.
Here.
Thank you very much. All board members present. Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. As shown in the video, we'll have a consent agenda today, items that have been reviewed and discussed during our study session and have been placed onto consent. One case today has been removed from consent. That's item 4A, and we will discuss that following our consent agenda being read. One other item we'd like to do prior to reading our consent agenda, I believe we've received a public comment that we would like to address and have read into the record regarding case 4D, ZON 21-00050. If that's correct, I'd love to have that read in at this point for us. Becky, would you be willing to do that for us?
Chair, I just received another comment card regarding case ZON 21-0050.
Okay, and is that referencing wishing to speak?
She stated she opposes it, but would like the comment card read aloud again as well.
Let's go ahead and hear both of those, please.
So the first comment card we received was from Karen Cervantes. She resides at 7544 East Jan Avenue. She stated she is opposed to the project. I do not want this apartment complex built. I feel that it will negatively impact my neighborhood. I believe traffic and crime will rise, and water pressure that is already low will become a trickle. Please vote no for this plan. And the last card I received is from Donna Cogswell. She resides at 7545 East Jan Avenue. She's also opposed to the project. She would like her comments read, which states, "We live on Jan Avenue and we are already burdened with an enormous amount of traffic. The apartments would just add to it, making it even harder to get out of our neighborhood." Those are the only two comment cards I've received on this case.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate those who make comments. They're very helpful as we discuss these cases, and we're able to read these in advance and make sure that we're confident in some of staff's decisions as well as the professional decisions that have gone into getting these cases moved forward to this phase. Members of the board, do we have comment regarding these different comment cards today or any additional questions for staff prior to reading the consent agenda? Okay. All right, I think at this point we will, that case will remain on consent, and Board Member Villanueva Saucedo, we're thankful for your willingness to read such a long consent agenda today, and we'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you. Consent agendas, item 2A, minutes from the April 14th, 2021 study session and regular meeting. Item 3A, ZON 20-00782, District 4, within the 1000 block of East University Drive, South Side, and within the 300 block of North Miller Street, East Side, located west of Stapley Drive on the south side of University Drive. Site plan review. Request will allow multiple residence development. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item 3B, ZON 20-00820, District 4, within the 1500 block of East Main Street, North Side, and within the 0 to 100 block of North Hunt Drive, West Side, located east of Stapley Drive on the north side of Main Street. Site plan review. Staff recommendation, request will allow for the redevelopment of a restaurant. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item 3C, ZON 21-00133, District 6, within the 8100 block of East Ray Road, South Side, located west of Haas Road on the south side of Ray Road. Site plan review and special use permit. This request will allow the development of an industrial building. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item 4B, ZON 20-00786 District 6 within the 9700 block of East Southern Avenue South Side, located west of Prisman Road on the south side of Southern Avenue, rezoned from Planned Employment Park PEP to Multiple Residence 5 RM5 with the Planned Area Development Overlay PAD and Site Plan Review. This request will allow for the multiple residence development. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item 4C, ZON 20-00872 District 6 within the 3800 to 4000 blocks of South Power Road East Side, located south of Elliott Road on the east side of Power Road. Modification to an approved planned area development overlay PAD on a 41.85 plus or minus acre property, rezone 10.8 plus or minus acres of the 41.85 acre property from general industrial GI PAD to light industrial LI PAD, and site plan review on 39.5 plus or minus acres of the 41.85 acre property. And modified condition of approval as read in today's study session. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions with that modified condition. Item 4D, ZON 21-00050 District 6 within the 1800 to 2000 blocks of South Sossaman Road West Side, located north of Baseline Road on the west side of Sossaman Road, rezoned from single residence 6 with a planned area development overlay, RS-S-PAD, office commercial OC, and the neighborhood commercial NC to multiple residence 4 with a planned area development RM4 PAD and site plan review. This request will allow for the development of a multiple residence development. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item 4E, 0121-00089 District 1 within the 2600 to 2800 blocks of East Lehigh Road West Side, located north of McDowell Road and east of the 202 Red Mountain Freeway, 41.8 plus or minus acres, rezoned from single residence 43 RS43 to single residence 15 RS15 with the planned area development overlay PAD. This request will allow the development of a single residence subdivision. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item 4F, ZON 21-00191 District 1 within the 2200 block of North Center Street West Side, located north of College Road and east of Country Club Drive, 24.42 plus or minus acres, rezoned from agricultural AG and light industrial LI to public semi-public PS. This request will allow for the development of a public facility. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item 5A, Power 42, District 6, within the 3800 to 4000 blocks of South Power Road, East Side, located south of Elliott Road on the east side of Power Road, overall 41.85 plus or minus acres. Preliminary plat. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item 5B, Sossaman Heights, District 6, within the 1800 to 2000 blocks of South Sossaman Road, West Side, located north of Baseline Road on the west side of Sossaman Road, 1.2 plus or minus acres. Preliminary plat. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item 5C, the Grove at Lehigh, District 1, within the 2600 to 2800 blocks of East Lehigh Road, West Side, located north of McDowell Road on the east of the 202 Red Mountain Freeway, 41.8 plus or minus acres. Preliminary plat. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Those are the consent agenda items for April 28th.
Thank you so very much, Board Member Villanueva Salcedo. With any other comments or questions, I can entertain a motion.
I would make the motion.
Board Member
Go
Allen.
ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I'll make the motion to approve consent agenda as read.
Thank you, Board Member Sarkisian. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, let's go ahead and do a roll call vote on the consent agenda. Chair Astle, aye. Vice Chair Sarkisian.
Yes.
Board Member Boyle.
Yes.
Board Member Allen.
Aye.
Board Member Crockett.
Vote aye.
Board Member Villanueva Salcedo.
Aye.
Board Member Ayers.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. The consent agenda passes unanimously with recommendation to council, the Planning and Zoning Board. And at this point, let's go ahead and open up our case 4A for discussion, case ZON 19-00832. And let's turn the time over to Ms. Cassidy Welch for a presentation regarding this case prior to discussion, please.
Thank you, Chair and members of the board. This is case ZON 19-00832. The site is approximately 20 acres located north of Maine and east of Dobson. The general plan designation for the site is mixed-use activity district. The zoning is a part of the form-based code transect zones, which include T4N, T4NF, T5N, T5MS, and T5MSF. The request before you today is a modification to the Sycamore Station Smart Growth Community Plan to allow for a mixed-use transit-oriented development. The Smart Growth Plan, as outlined in Chapter 63, requires certain standards to be included as a part of the plan, including pedestrian sheds, transect zones, thoroughfare networks, and civic spaces. Final development plans will be approved through an administrative zoning clearance process. The request also includes modifications to the approved preliminary development plan. Those modifications include changes to the parcel configurations, parking standards, pedestrian and vehicular thoroughfares, and building form standards. Staff finds that the proposed modifications comply with the general plan as well as the West Main Street sub-area plan and meet the criteria in Chapter 63 for smart growth community plans, and we are recommending approval with conditions.
Thank you very much, Cassidy. I believe at the same time, there is a revised condition that staff wanted to address during this hearing today. Is that true, and is now a reasonable time to review that?
That's correct. We are proposing a minor modification to condition number 3 to include the language that is highlighted in blue. With each phase of the development, the developer shall improve all streets and thoroughfares within and immediately adjacent to that phase of the development with paving, curb, gutter, sidewalk, curb ramps, driveways, streetlights, median islands, landscaping, and or other incidentals. All improvements shall comply with all ADA accessibility standards.
Okay. So the difference is with each phase. Okay.
Correct.
All right. Members of the board, understood in that regard, this adjustment? Okay, great. At this time, I believe two things. I believe we have an applicant close by for discussion if need be. And I think also we would like to open this up to public and hear from the public regarding this case. Maybe prior to that, does the applicant have any comments that we would like to be aware of before we hear from the public?
Chair, and I don't know what, all these virtual protocols, I put my camera on, I don't know if I'm supposed to, but just still learning all the different jurisdictions and all the different protocols. Neil Calfee is also here. You can see his lovely face. Wish we were in chambers with you, but we're not. Thank you so much. We don't have a presentation. We are available for questions or comments. The stipulation, we agree with that. Apologies to Cassidy and Nana and the planning staff. Just looking for that clarity to ensure that, that it's attached to each phase as opposed to the development as a whole. But we are interested to hear if Mr. Montag has a comment, and then I'm happy to answer any questions or comments. This really was a cleanup item. Many of you heard this case years ago. It has not changed in substance. We just needed to change a lot of the details so we could actually build what we had always planned out there. So.
Okay. I appreciate that. Let's go ahead and turn the time over to this public hearing and hear from those who have comment cards. I believe at this point we have one comment card. Is that correct, staff? And let's go ahead and hear that.
That's correct. We haven't received any more additional.
How you doing?
Who do we have on? Or have we already opened it up to, is it Tyler that's on the call?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can. Thank you. We'd love to.
Okay, great.
Get your name and address.
Yes.
And
I would disagree that this is the project that was approved a few years ago. I was part of the neighborhood meetings at that point, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Mesa Grande Community Alliance. That project included, I think the number was 87 townhomes that would be adjacent to the school and on the street. There would be for sale ownership component, and that ownership component of the project was a significant piece of the project and was the main reason that the neighborhood agreed to this project, which of course involves some city land. We are concerned about only building apartments, a large, high-dense apartment project. You know, most of the apartments in our neighborhood that started out nice, and 10 years later they transition to mediocre, and then at some point after that become struggling properties, Sandal Ridge, Parkside, Brookview, The Link, the list goes on and on. It's nearly all of them as they have aged. I've lived in this neighborhood for 49 years. The schools haven't been part of the process. I think if we continue to build this way, we risk segregation economically. And so, you know, we submitted a letter and withdrew our support for the project once this ownership component was withdrawn. And so that's the case. Those are our concerns about it. And, you know, we urge the city to put this back through a neighborhood review and to insist on the ownership component that was an initial part of it. I know there was some difficulties in doing that. There's a piece of land that was going to be hard to do it, and we believe in the good faith of Neil Calfee and Lindsay, and you know, we're not trying to disparage anybody, but that really is important to us, and we really don't just want apartments. We want the things that were promised. A parking garage was part of it. Ownership, and here now we're just getting the apartment. So we're concerned. We no longer support it as is. We'd like to see those things addressed. Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Thank you very much for participating. Can we maybe two things? Let's go ahead and hear from the applicant regarding what was just said. Maybe differences between the initial project I'd be interested to hear about, and maybe staff also regarding neighborhood process and it not. Tyler referencing it not going back through, things like that. Maybe applicant, could we hear from you first? I'm sorry, I don't know names for that.
Hi everybody. My name is Neil Calfee. I represent Mira Vista Holdings, the applicant. Going back through, obviously we appreciate Tyler's input on this. He was involved, as was many other members of the community, in this initial process. And it was originally to master plan 20 acres of this entire site that included the 800 plus parking spaces that were the Valley Metro Park and Ride, as well as the bus transfer facility and the private sector properties that are essentially on your map here as the D and the A's. And all of that was master planned and put together under the Smart Growth Community Plan. And as Tyler points out, we did include multifamily. We had originally back in 2016 a parking garage, as well as basically two multifamily components and a component that is for sale. What I'd like to clarify is that for sale component is still in there from an entitlement perspective. It has not gone away. It's not changing. That is still in place. The parking garage that he references was no longer necessary because of the amount of parking that was needed on site. And so we originally were looking at 350 spaces. It's down to 150 per Valley Metro. So there was no need to build a garage, but it was a matter of being able to maintain sufficient public parking for the park and ride. So that is still within the project. The challenge we face in terms of developing the single family or the for sale component is that property is not available for development in the foreseeable future. Based on some ownership issues that involve the city and a private party, it's unavailable. So the challenges are in that we can't develop that component of it at this time. If it was available, we would be certainly looking at that. The market would certainly support it, but it's not available at that time. What we do have are the components that were originally entitled on the private sector land are able to move forward now, and that's what's prompting many of these changes. I will state that we did involve the schools. We had many discussions with them. Contrary to popular belief, the schools are actually in Mesa Public Schools, and Webster, the president or the principal of Webster Elementary, was excited to have more people here, which translates to more potentially more students for the school. The issue isn't that the schools are going to be overloaded, it's the schools may be underloaded. And I think many who study this issue understand that we're losing students, we're not overwhelming the schools. And so they were, the school district was happy to see additional density and additional bodies here that could mean more students for Webster schools. So that's where really what's prompting this is the ability to move forward with development at this point pursuant to the plan and make the technical changes that would allow that development to occur without changing any of the remaining entitlements, without changing any of the other uses that remain on the site, which hopefully can move forward for development at the appropriate time. Lindsay, do you have anything to add based on that?
I was going to say, Chair, if I may, the only thing I would add, Mr. Tyler, it is always great to hear from you, and you're welcome, and I appreciate your comments. It sounds like we're probably due to come back to Mesa Grande. Hopefully now, if we're all getting together back in person again, that the for sale component and the townhomes are absolutely still there. That was a long, Neil explained kind of the history, but the for sale product is still there. The first phases of development that we had control over are the for rent portions, but the for sale is still there. We have not made those substantial changes. And Tyler, I commit to you, I will reach out to Stephanie or whomever at Mesa Grande, and we'll schedule time to go out and show you that all those elements of the plan are still there.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, very, very helpful. Thank you so much for the clarification from both the applicant, and thank you, Tyler, for your comments. It really helped open up a little bit more discussion and provide a little bit more clarity. Members of the board, do we have questions for staff or please, Board Member Boyle, I think first, and then Board Member Allen.
Yeah, so first off, just to clarify that this for sale element of the project, where is it? If it's still there, but the original location of it wasn't able to be purchased, what's the for sale section at this point?
Chair.
Sorry.
Chair.
Go ahead, Cassidy.
Board Member Boyle, the for sale product was intended to be developed on what you're seeing in this slide, parcels B1 and B2.
And it's still intended to be that way?
So it is still included on the preliminary development plan and included with the smart growth community plan. I think what the resident is referring to is that property is owned by the city of Mesa. And there's a lease agreement on that property that has some time limitations before it can be developed.
So what you're saying, Cassie, if I understand, so it's possible that this could all be developed and just be rental property and the for sale product would never actually come to light if that's not resolved?
Cassidy, may I step in, or Chair?
Yeah, please, let you go ahead, applicant. Remind me your first name. Sorry.
Yes, absolutely. Lindsay, no apologies. Lindsay Shuby with the law firm of Gamage and Burnham. I'm so excited talking about the virtual environment, 40 North Central in Phoenix, Arizona. Commissioner Boyle, so it was very important to us, as you know, we've got a property owner here, and then the city has a lease over the property. And so there were a bunch of different parts, but it was important to us to get development on this property and still keep the entitlements. So I think most important is if those entitlements are ever to change, they have to come back to you for approval. So right now the city does control the property, but they don't own it. So, it's actually the city of Mesa who has a seat at this table in terms of being the controlling entity of the parcels, always in the same place, kind of as a buffer to the neighborhood. That's always where we kind of thought kind of the height and the ownership made sense in that project. It was always there. The city still controls it, but with that fee, the fee property interest is a private property owner. So the city and the private property owner have to work that out, but the entitlements are there. And so if anyone wants to develop anything different than that, they will have to come through this process.
Okay, or it just remains as it is. I mean, Lindsay, it would be possible to build the entire rental section of this and the for sale section never to be built. Is that correct?
at this point, we don't control that property. So the entitlement's on there, that no one can build anything other than what is entitled to be on there. But as I can't, unfortunately, Neil and Mira Vista can't control when that's going to happen. Actually, the city has more control.
Chair, members of the board, if I may add, so this development could be developed in phases. It's not much different from any other development where, unless there is a development agreement that specifically specifies the phases, this entire development, they could come in and just build one section or just one building. So that's one of the things I want the board to be cognizant of.
Yeah, well, I think that's an important element to this. You know, we hear from developers that the schools are excited for them to come in, but then we look at the ratings on the schools and they continue to go down. We refer to the Mesa 2040 general plan. It says the design and maintenance of the neighborhood surrounding schools can affect the quality of the schools and the role they play in the neighborhood. When the neighborhood population is largely transient, it's difficult for schools to provide the same level of service compared to more balanced, stable neighborhoods. So I'm concerned, and I know when this was first pitched to my neighborhood, there was a for sale element, and that's sort of what the neighborhood accepted and said, okay, if there's a for sale element, we can see that there's a balance here. If it ends up being a largely transient thing, then by our own Mesa 2040 plan, we are negatively affecting the schools there, and I don't think that's the right thing to do. The other thing that concerns me about this is sort of what happened with that Riverview development. When it had the neighborhood meeting originally, many years ago, it was pitched as a 2-story development. And then with the negotiation within the city, it became a 3-story development, which ended up ruining the views of all the neighbors of the Riverview area that's going through there. And then they had the entitlements. They said, well, look, it's allowed to be 3, something like that. So the neighborhood component was kind of cut off. And I think, you know, we often talk about how important the citizen participation reports are, and when there's a good one, there's a bad one. If there's a citizen participation report on this one that's 2 years old, and the project has changed dramatically since then I think this needs to be delayed, and there needs to be a conversation with the neighborhoods, and the citizens need to be given input once again on what happens in their neighborhoods.
Chairman, may I just answer, at least just address a little bit of what Mr. Boyle said?
Please.
Or Commissioner. Please, thank you. Chair, Commissioner Boyle specifically. These entitlements in these buildings haven't changed. And what our hope is by getting the property that now does have an active developer ready to go to get a shovel in the ground, that will entice the property owner to allow us to move forward. We still want to move forward on that piece. That's why, again, it's important we have the entitlements there. We want to move forward. And what we're really hoping for, that the nuanced changes have to do with the smart growth community plan, and staff can answer that, can confirm that what I'm saying is correct. It doesn't change either the density or the doesn't change the form of what we had originally proposed. So we're really hopeful that we can move forward, because we want some action out there to entice the property owner out there to let us get going on there. There's still every intent to try to secure the balance of the property and to move forward on it.
Well, I might say that lots of developers are really hopeful that things are going to happen. But if the really hopeful part doesn't happen, then by our general plan, there will be a negative effect on that school right there. And I don't believe that's the correct thing to do.
Board Member Allen, please.
My comment or question goes a little more towards Mr. Montague. Are you still there? Is he still with us, Tyler?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. Well, my comment, I guess, to you, because you're representing the neighborhood at this point, and I'm leaning a little more towards Mr. Boyle as far as a delay in this, because my question is, are you comfortable with what was said here today and the kind of direction that this is going, or would you guys be more comfortable having a discussion, a presentation, and then bringing it back to us with the full support of your board or your group?
We would like to do that at least. We believe in the good faith of the developer. I know they really wanted the ownership component, but also the support of the neighborhood was really dependent on that happening. So now that it's not, I just, you know, there's a bait and switch here. Again, nobody's you know, committing any kind of fraud here or you know, pulling the wool over anyone's eyes, but it just doesn't seem right without getting, you know, going back through the process of getting some buy-in, and maybe a presentation would be enough, and maybe if there's comfort level that the ownership component will happen in a reasonable amount of time. We know that there's some uncertainty there, but if we're talking 20 years down the road, then all we did is we just built a big apartment complex, and so I would like to get more comfort around that, and I think I speak for the vast majority of those that were a part of this process, and certainly for our organization.
Can I interject something, Chair?
I guess I kind of.
Let's go ahead and finish up with Board Member Allen, and then we'll move on to the next.
And Tyler, I agree with you, because I know those participants that are in your neighborhood, and I know how active they are in a lot of the community efforts. So I'm leaning more towards maybe suggesting that we extend this, postpone this, or delay until the next meeting. Anyway, that's my point where I'm coming from.
Chair.
I think we have Board Member Ayers requesting a moment.
Just a quick question there. So I understand like the delay of this, but without control of B1 and B2, which they do not have, a delay, I don't know where it would lead to. They don't have control to be able to guarantee that ownership requirement will be part of the B1 and the B2 sections of this. So I'm curious, like, you know, what could the applicant do within a time frame of delay to make the neighborhood group feel better about it? Because they cannot guarantee this without control of that property, correct?
Yeah, and this is also an entitled piece, which means, of course, as everyone understands, we would see something if it were to happen differently in the future and be able to help.
Exactly. Yeah, we'd have our say then at that point.
Make sure that
Chair,
that doesn't.
Members, this is Charlotte in the City Attorney's Office.
Hi, Charlotte.
There might be some private entitlements on the property, but from a zoning perspective, I don't know that there's any conditions that speak to ownership, nor do I think that we can do that through the zoning process. So I don't know if delaying that would have the effect that you're looking for, that there isn't currently anything that speaks to ownership as far as this zoning case that's before you today. Now, again, there could be some private entitlements on the property, but as far as the zoning case that's before you, there is no condition or nothing in the smart growth plan that I'm aware of that speaks to ownership, nor am I aware that you can even do that through the zoning process.
Thank you, Charlotte. So, I mean, that was exactly the question I had. As a delay, we would be back in the exact same position we are today at that meeting, correct?
Well, and I guess my only comment for suggesting a delay would be the comfort of the neighborhood, just for citizen participation, because this is, they feel like this is a change, whether it is or not, that's up to the applicant to talk to them about it. That's the only reason I suggested it, is for a neighborhood participation point of view.
Chair?
Please, was that Board Member Sarkisian, Vice Chair Sarkisian? And then afterwards, I'd like to hear from Board Member Villanueva Saucedo.
So, you know, as this keeps going back and forth, the parcel in play, like as Lindsay and Neil mentioned, is that there's a lot, I mean, it's City of Mesa. So a lot of that kind of also lands in their department of what's going to happen with their lease or however they're going to do that. But this project is meeting all the requirements that we were looking for something like this in this kind of urban transit area, and all the design requirements and development standards. And that's really where they're at with this one, is a development standard change. You know, we're not allowed legally to zone according to ownership. If they decide later to change other pieces of it to ownership or change something else, that's not something we're even allowed to ask. Maybe when single family home builders come in, you can't say, are they owner occupied or leased? Because that doesn't have anything to do with zoning. And then I think it still meets the requirements of what we were looking for earlier with the different, designs and transit oriented and all that stuff. So I think and they did follow the requirements, as I understand, in terms of public notification, because this is a development standards change. This isn't a complete change they're not moving zonings around or anything like that. The uses are staying, the development standards are staying the same in the transects. It's just a modification, which I know I've had to do several times in other projects where you think it's really cool and then you go to build it and something makes it unusable or it doesn't work or it adds to a cost that you just can't pencil it out. And right now this site is sitting vacant. And if also, the light rail station and all of them said that they don't even need some of those parking stalls. I mean, that just happens. You don't want to have unusable parking just sitting there. I mean, I know Mesa has an issue with making sure places aren't overparked. So they're just trying to modify according to what's happened since they first came in. I think I understand what their the concern of Chairman Board Member Tim and Shelley, but I don't see that that's something that we can address, or we can't force anybody to do this. And the whole phasing part of projects, all kinds of projects come in phases, and you can't. We're supposed to vote on what we feel the project, if that would be a good end result project, not on what ifs. What if this doesn't happen? What if phase 2 goes here or 3 or that? And so I think just putting all worst case scenarios in front kind of gets in the way of what we're looking at here. So that's all.
Okay. Board Member Villanueva Saucedo.
I don't have any objections to the plan itself. And if the school has responded that it's not going to be an issue, I take that at good faith. My issue is that it's been so long since they've had any kind of neighborhood meeting. And given that this is such a high profile property, and given that it is such an active area of residence, I would be more comfortable delaying so that the developers can go back to have a full-fledged neighborhood meeting and have discussion. If the end result is the same, that's fine. But I think the neighborhood group at least is owed that opportunity to have some sort of discussion. Last time that there was any substantial meeting is 2019. I just don't think that that's sufficient. Again, if the ownership issue is still at play, I'm okay with that. I don't have any major issues over the design. It's more the principle that if we value citizen engagement, then we need to abide by citizen engagement. And to me, 2019 for such a high profile site just isn't sufficient.
Thank you, Board Member Villanueva Saucedo. Any other comments from board members? Okay. Does the applicant have any comments regarding board member concerns?
I will point out that we did meet with Mesa Grande in 2019 with this exact project and this exact scenario. And so we went to them, explained what was happening, explained that the B1 and B2 parcels were likely not going to be developed in the foreseeable future, but explaining how we needed to make these technical changes. And I don't recall if Tyler was part of that meeting. I don't believe Tim was there either. Councilmember or Commissioner Boyle was there either. But we did go through and we felt like we had discussed this with neighborhoods. They were enthusiastic to see something happen out there. And so in coming back today, none of those factual elements have changed. And so that is where we'd be happy to take it back and discuss with them. But in terms of what we would be presenting, it'd be the exact same presentation we made in 2019 to the exact same group. And we're very clear about what the phasing would look like and why we were making these changes. So I would push back on the bait and switch comment because we've certainly not bait and switch. We've been open and we're happy to discuss whatever needs to be discussed with the neighbors, anybody who else is interested.
Neil, I'd only add, it sounds like a really long time, commissioners, 2019, when I hear that, but it has not changed. We sat down, I know Ms. Wright was there, Tyler, I believe your father was there, I can't remember, but we presented in person pre-COVID, and it's exactly what's there now. We just wanted to make sure that when we had final development plans that were in front of the planning director, that all the standards matched, and that's it. So it hasn't changed, but you know, if that, we will do whatever the commission thinks is best.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the comments. Board Member Boyle, you have another?
I do, yes, I was at those meetings. The major concern that the neighborhood had was that this not just be a rental property, and that there be, and the comment was said, you know, don't worry about it. There's a large for sale component. You don't need to worry about it. It's not going to be just rentals. And that's what made the neighborhood feel comfortable with this whole project. If that's now up in the air, then there has been a very dramatic change. And this neighborhood is very concerned with its schools, and that's why it takes the 2040 Mesa General Plan comment very seriously, as these are the schools that get hurt the hardest. And as Tyler talked about, Sandalwood and these other apartment complexes that have had a negative effect on the schools over the years and have a negative effect on crime and other things like that. That's the worry of West Mesa. So we hope for these things to happen. I want this to happen as much as anyone. I think I asked to make it bigger and more beautiful and more fantastic at the time. But if it ends up being kind of like this, and then that part never happens, then we're hurting West Mesa. And then it's surprising how the hope that things happen well often works out in East Mesa, and then surprisingly it never quite works out in West Mesa. And I think if you look carefully at the grades that the different schools have, I think you see that very clearly. And that's something that we as a zoning board are responsible for.
So Board Member Boyle, I guess a comment. I mean, if nothing has changed since that meeting, and you're saying it's now up in the air, I mean, realistically, it was the same then, correct? Same ownership situation, same proposal, and same general.
Chair, the meetings that I attended, the for sale component, as I recall, was part of phase 1, and would happen before the other elements. And as I recall those meetings, it was not up in the air. It was pitched as, yeah, this is the first thing we're going to do. Don't worry about this. And so the order of these things changing is a change. And the certainty of that component is definitely a change.
Okay, and Board Member Crockett, I think you had a comment before maybe we move on.
Yeah, Chair Astle, I just wanted to say that I do share some of these same concerns about whether the local residents have had an opportunity to understand the plan, the way it's moving forward. Again, I don't have a problem with the project, but I do feel like what's been communicated through Mr. Montague is that there is a lack of information from the neighborhood, and I'd like to see the neighbors have a little more complete information before we move forward. That's my opinion here. Thanks.
And may I ask one more question to the applicant, considering what you're hearing from the board, how would you like us to address? We could go to a vote, or we could allow, or the vote be something that allows you to continue communication for today, or a continuance, or we vote and whatever happens, happens. I just wanted to open that up as you have heard the concerns and have a moment to think through how you would like to address this as the applicant prior to us closing out this case today.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go ahead, Lindsay?
Well, Chair, I was going to say thank you very much for giving us that opportunity. Obviously, we would like to move forward. We've got some final development plans that we're really excited to move forward with. That said, if Commissioner Boyle and Mr. Montague still have concerns, we want to make sure, I heard before even anyone said continuance, Tyler, we need to go to Mesa Grande because it sounds like you guys need more. I would like to suggest that we have a meeting with Mesa Grande in between Planning Commission and Council. I do know that all the members of Mesa Grande also have a direct line up to our City Council members. and absolutely commit to you that we'll find a date in the next couple of weeks to get in front of you. And you know, hopefully you know at least we have made a great effort of being out there pre-COVID. You know, we haven't seen you post-COVID. But if that satisfies Commissioner Boyle and Mr. Montague, then that would be my suggestion. If that is not, if Mr. Boyle and Mr. Montague still would like us to continue at the Planning Commission stage, it adds more time to the process, but we commit to meeting. So if they're willing, we'll commit to meeting before council and bring out our whole plan. But if it behooves Commissioner Boyle and Mr. Montague, we can continue. So we want to be good stewards of the community. We look forward to being good neighbors.
Chair, members of the board, I would like to just add my comment before you continue as you make your decision here. Typically, the issue with allowing the project to move forward to City Council is once we introduce the project at City Council, we will not be able to make changes whenever, in case they meet with a neighborhood, and there are likely small, even if they are small or minor changes. And the City Council also, most of the time, prefer to get a full recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Board, because without you knowing what may transpire at the neighborhood meeting and any changes that may happen, your recommendation may not include those, and council typically wants to know what the P&Z thinks about certain changes or the full project.
Thank you very much. I think that's actually very, very good counsel. This is always difficult for me. I'm so interested in all of my fellow board members' concerns and questions, as well as public and staff and the applicant. We've got so much to think about and to hear. This is one of the first times where I feel like the outcome might probably not change necessarily based on the entitlements that are in place, but I don't think it's a bad idea, mostly because I believe we as a board and the neighbors could all be unanimous in our thinking if that conversation could occur. Any other comments from board members prior to me requesting a motion? Board Member Allen.
I just have a question, and that's basically to Nana. If we do suggest or recommend an extension of this to the next following meeting, is it too late to extend it to the June or May 12th meeting, or do we need to go later than that?
Chair, members of the board, no, you can continue today to the date setting, which will be the May 12th meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, Commissioner, we will gladly take the continuance. Nana raises a great point that if there are any changes, then we can address them then. So we'll get going and reach out to everyone at Mesa Grande and get on the book. So we agree to a continuance, whomever wants to make the motion, that's probably sounds like what's best.
I can accept the motion at this point.
And at that point, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we continue case ZON 19-00832, District 3. Do I need to read the whole?
No, but you could just reference the specifics and location we're aware of.
Well, within the 1800 block, so it's ZON 19-00832, District 3, within the 1800 block of West Main Street, North Side, and within the 100 block of North Dobson Road, East Side, and within the 0 to 200 blocks of North Sycamore, West Side, located east of Dobson Road and north of Main Street, 21 acres, modification to the Sycamore Station Smart Growth Community Plan. This request allows for a mixed-use development, transit-oriented development, and staff recommendation is approval with conditions, but I would recommend that we continue this to the May 12th meeting.
Okay, do we have a second on that request to continue to May 12th?
I'll second that.
Seconds that. Let's do a roll call vote. Chair Astle, aye. Vice Chair Sarkisian.
Yes.
Board Member Boyle.
Yes.
Board Member Allen.
Aye.
Board Member Crockett.
I vote aye.
Board Member Villanueva Salcedo.
Aye.
Board Member Ayers.
Yes.
Okay, that continuance passes unanimously with it and is requested unanimously by the board. And I am glad that the applicant is on board with that. I really do look forward to the outcome and believe it will be a positive one. I will turn the time over to staff. Any items today? I believe we've accommodated all of the agenda items. Anything more to reference prior to closing out our meeting?
Chair, board members, no, we will see you on May 12th in person. And those who can also do, wants to participate through Zoom, will also have that opportunity. Thank you.
I appreciate that. I look forward to seeing everybody in person. I guess I can request a motion to adjourn.
I will move that we adjourn.
Thank you, Board Member Pratt.
Second.
Thank you very much. All in favor, please vote. Aye.
Aye.
Looks like that was an easy one. Appreciate you guys. Look forward to seeing you in a few weeks. Talk soon.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, bye.